Colin, you worked at a lot of different startups. You were CEO at different companies, and a couple of years ago, you became the co-founder of venture capital. So I'm curious about how this transition worked out for you. You were someone building a company, now you're someone where companies go to for funding.
I mean, I think it's probably something that was always sort of in me to do funding, but my path was kind of like doing startups at first. So kind of like if you want to invest in something, it's good to know about it. It's good to be, it's good to have skills in that particular thing that you're investing in. It. The more knowledge you have around whatever you're investing, the better, obviously, right? And a lot of venture capitalists come at being venture capitalists from a financial background. They're really good with the money and the numbers, but they don't really know how to run a startup. In fact, a lot of venture capital people that I meet are always say, "Oh, I wish I could start a startup." Because sort of like the missing little piece. So I don't know if I didn't sort of have that idea in the beginning. But it worked out really well because, I really loved the idea of startups. I was kind of like, I remember being young and just being really risk averse. Like, let's start a company, see what happens. If we lose, we lose. It doesn't matter. We'll start all over again. I didn't have a problem with that. Whereas, people are like, you didn't want to take the risk. So I love startups from an early age. I mean, even at university, I was doing some startups, post-university. I knew I was going to start my own company, so I started working in different big companies and small companies just to get as much experience as possible. And then, kind of around 1995, I started doing startups, and I probably did like four or five, kind of in succession a little bit, taking less and less of a role. And what I found is running a startup is all inclusive, like it's like 100%. So you can only do one at a time. And I realized that after like a decade into doing startups that I kind of wanted to do 30 at a time, not just one at a time. And the model of being CEO, it doesn't really work that well that way. So I started kind of taking more of a back seat and helping startups get off the ground, investing a little bit, not, being more of an investor. Did angel investing for 15 years. And then, learning startups, learning how to invest with my own money, losing my own money. And then kind of like, then I feel comfortable doing VC, which is taking other people's money and investing it. So otherwise I wouldn't have felt that comfortable doing it. So it was end up being a kind of a windy path to venture capital, but that's where I discovered, I really, love it.
It's so interesting the way you put it because it's true. VCs usually are great with money, but they don't really necessarily have the experience of starting their own business. So as someone who did, do you feel like you're able to read through let's call them the lies and the gray areas when people come up to you and want to pitch their product? Do you feel like with the experience you have, you're able to immediately know this is real, this is fake, especially in the age of AI, where everyone's an AI company today?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that my skills got me there. I think I just got lot more empathetic about founders. You know what I mean? Like, so my partner's not, he's from the financial background, and so we have this good fit because, you need a pretty solid financial background to manage other people's money, right? And there's a whole world around that which I didn't have a lot of skills for, but of course my partner did. So we work really well together. Um, he is also very good at learning, of seeing through the bullshit and stuff like that. So I don't know that I learned much there. I think I just learned a little bit more empathy for the founders. Like, it's not always going to go well for the founders. And financial people are kind of like, the numbers are here, the numbers need to be here. And if they're not here, then we maybe have to make changes. And,
Mhm.
they have their whole structure around, moving quickly. And, I have more empathy around that with founders. So I'm good with working with founders and I can
Mhm.
help them, I can guide them. I'm better, I think, in the boardroom, trying to inspire them and stuff like that. So that those sort of soft skills, working with
Mhm.
founders. But in terms of seeing through, that's just a lot of experience of just investing, from whatever background. Yeah.
I bring this up because of like a recent story. where I don't know if you heard about it, where Builder AI, they had like $1 billion valuation, ended up being like just a shell of people doing manual work. And you had like some big shot investors investing in it. So it's even at that level, it's very difficult to spot a real value, a company with substance versus a company who
Yeah.
doesn't. And since you're an early stage startup investor, I mean, this must be another level of difficulty because there's
Well,
not much there.
you could argue that none of them have any substance, right? So then you're starting from scratch anyway. So you gotta
Yeah.
work on a little more first principles. Like forget about what's behind the scenes. What's the idea? What's the person like? It's different. Maybe we're looking at different things because we're sort of seed stage, right? So you don't have to go do a ton of due diligence on what's actually happening behind the scenes. But our model, so Risk Capital, which is our company, we were the first deep tech focused VC in Canada, like 2020 when we started. And we've developed this cool model where we have these domain experts around us. So it's me and my partner, and now a third partner, and our second fund coming along. We have this group of domain experts around us, some formal, some informal. And so when we're looking at a company, which is deep tech, and my partner and I, we're more broad understanding of things, we bring in the domain experts that we have and we let them go kick the tires and see what it's like. So we're looking at one right now and we just want to go physically get a demo of the product because it sounds like a cool idea. And so we'll kick the tires pretty hard with our domain experts we use. So that's kind of our methodology, a little different from the traditional VC.
And, people generally say that you invest not just in the product, but you invest in the person. So, can you talk to me a bit about the green flags in someone that you spot immediately, or maybe in the red flags when you meet a
Yeah, yeah.
founder for the first time?
I mean, it's probably one of the hardest things too, because salesmen are salesmen, right? That's what they know how to sell. If they're good at sales, they can convince you of things, right? So, um, you know, we work with a lot of deep tech founders who are usually science-oriented people. So they're usually not very good at sales. So they're fairly transparent. And that has pluses and minuses. Some of them uh, come to us because they want to, they've been working on some tech for maybe 10 years and they want to commercialize it and they come to us. So we have to quickly evaluate whether they're kind of being honest with us because a lot of them say they want to commercialize it and they think they do, but in reality, they still want to hang out in the lab. And commercializing technology, as you were just talking about earlier, is you have to do the accounting, you have to go out and see customers, you have to manage your staff, you have to do all the things that a lot of science guys don't want to do. And they don't realize that that's what they have to do. They have to get out of the lab and actually run their business. And they think they want to do that and they get out there and they kind of go, no, I prefer to be in the lab developing new technology. So that's one thing. And the other thing we've come across is they're often perfectionists, right? So they've been taught in school for like decades that you're not going to put something in front of a professor unless you've done your best job at it running perfectly and does the you're going to get 100% grade on it or whatever. Whereas in reality, or in the commercial world, you're putting out, vaporware and early stuff and seeing what happens and getting customer feedback, and it's like very iterative. So they have to transition to that as well. So anyway, yeah. So people are hard, but yeah, we're in a different world, mostly dealing with science people. So we have to have our own little way of managing or understanding how they're going to work.
I'm curious because you did angel investing and now you're doing venture capital. Is it is it a different type of pressure when it's your own money on the line?
I mean, yeah, for sure. I would say it's almost less pressure in a way. Because when I did angel investing, I would just kind of like, hey, I like that idea. I like the people. I don't mind working with those guys, and I don't have a time frame. It's kind of like, this could take a long time, and a lot of big companies take a really long time. I mean, some of my angel investing deals 20 years ago are now doing really well. Like they didn't do well for the first 10, even 15 years, but now they're doing really well. So they can take a long time. So that's great for angel investing. VC investing, you've got shareholders and partners, limited partners, and so you got to get they want their money back, inside of 10 years. So when you're looking at a deal, which might be a great deal, if it's not going to actually work out that well in the first 10 years, especially deep tech, right? I mean, you can be developing a product for 7 years, and still, working on the prototype. So if it's not going to really work in the time frame, even though it could be a great idea, we're not going to invest in it. Whereas an angel investor, I'd invest if it's a good idea.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. I mean, if it's your own money, win or lose, it was your bet. But if it's
Yeah.
someone else's money,
Less pressure, yeah.
yeah, it's true.
But then on
Um,
the other hand, yeah, I mean, you got to have the money that you're investing has to be extra money. It can't be like you can't be
of
mortgaging your house
course.
and stuff like that.
Of course, we keep coming back to the term deep tech. Can you just describe it in a very concise way, just so that we make sure that
Oh yeah,
we're
sure.
aligned on this?
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, we're always in the VC world, so but I mean, deep tech is anything what we call a little more, I mean, we just call it a little more complicated tech. So it's often related to patents. And coming out of universities and labs, and it's sort of innovative tech. So a new drone technology, for example, like these guys, this company we have, they have a patent on rotors that can gimbal. So no one else can do rotors that can gimbal. I mean, we've seen a few out there, but they're not technically allowed to do that, so we can see them. But the advantage of gimbaling rotors is you can take a drone and you can put it against a wall and you can put pressure on the wall for measuring or for painting or for fixing things or whatever. So it's a
Mm,
kind of a worker drone product. Whereas a normal drone would probably bounce off the wall as it gets near, you know what I mean? So that's a patented technology that these guys have. So it creates a
mm,
bit of a moat, around what they can do in terms of being a worker drone. And so it's sort of advances in technology. There's quantum, there's AI, there's robotics, there's advanced materials, there's chemicals, engineering. What else? There's different medical engineering things, stuff like that. Um, and then put that in context. Really big in Europe for the last few decades. Israel, South Africa, a lot of deep tech investing. Newer to the US. So in US, the big deep tech VCs in the US are, 10, 15 years old, whereas in Europe later. And then even newer to Canada. So we're just a more risk averse ecosystem, VC ecosystem, newer. So we're just getting into the deep tech world.
yeah. I mean, we just have a few minutes left, so really want to cover this topic. Everyone's been talking about the shift from software to hardware because of vibe coding. You can now basically build an application in 20 minutes. You just write a prompt and everything gets built. It's not going to be perfect, but it's 80% of the work, and you don't have to write any code.
Yeah.
So that's why we're hearing a lot of people transitioning to the hardware industry because you can't really prompt a factory, not yet, at least.
Well, we're getting there. We have
So
an investment that does that actually. Yeah, but yeah.
really, all right. So are you more focused on hardware because of the examples you gave? Do you feel like you're more focused on hardware, or is it a bit of both?
Bit of both. I'm looking. Our companies are probably a third are AI and two-thirds sort of hardware, I guess. But we really there's lots of room for AI to grow, and it's kind of like I think I would say a lot of people, including Jeffrey Hinton, still think that AI is, for example, radiology, if AI and pathology, if AI can do that stuff better than a human, just, let the humans be replaced. Turns out, so far anyway, there are more radiologists and more pathologists because you need to have humans supporting that kind of stuff. So humans are learning to use the AI as a tool, kind of like, factories replaced a bunch of humans, but they created bigger factories with more humans in them for now we got robotics in factories, maybe less humans. But I mean, I think we're early stages in AI, so I think there's lots of room there, and I think there's lots of room
Mhm.
for hardware as well. Yeah, I mean, I don't think those trends are accurate.
Yeah, but as someone who's in the field, I also feel like it's it's the culture around it. Like people don't want to give up power entirely to the software.
Yeah.
That's kind of a recurring theme in big corporations. Like you still want someone to approve, although
Yeah.
that approval can, even if it's 99.9% yes, they still want someone to come in and say yes, approved, just so
Yeah.
that they don't hand over all the power.
Yeah. But it's also, in the case of pathology, um, for the humans, well, yeah, I mean, maybe it'll change, but like if you get a misdiag, like I think 10-15% of biopsies diagnosed by pathologists are not accurate, right? So you're told you have cancer or you're told you don't have cancer. And so pathologists get to like, the good ones are, 95% accurate or 90% accurate, but that's the state of the world. AI can be, 97% accurate. But when the FDA is kind of trying to approve this stuff to get to put in the workplace, you eventually get down to the patient, and the patient says, I prefer a human to get it wrong than a machine to get it wrong. If the machine says I have cancer, I don't have cancer, and the machine is wrong, that's unacceptable. Like I will not go that route because I don't want a machine to. But if
Mhm.
a human gets it wrong, it's okay. Like I'm okay because we know humans aren't perfect and stuff like that. So I'm okay with that. And it's a human. So
I mean, it's interesting the concept of accountability. If the problem is coming from a machine, what do you do? Like, do you revoke its license? I mean, you can't do much, right?
right, right. I mean, but eventually they're going to be used in like I'm still of the philosophy that AI is still a tool. Like, calculators. They replaced, NASA humans in working on, calculators, but they're still a tool. So now we get to use them. We get to use calculators on our table and do quick math and stuff like that. So doing quick things with AI to help you do your job is still, I think, going to happen.
Colin, I will end with this question. You're investing in deep tech, so which we now established is the technology of the future. Do you feel like the regulation in the country or the regulatory environment is a liability, or is it something you spend a lot of time worrying about because your technology is not out there yet? So maybe you need to wait for approval, even though what you have could be implemented in the market. Can you talk to me about the relationship here between the tech
Yeah,
and
so we kind of have a general rule that we don't really get involved if there's too much regulatory pressure. Like if it's a medical thing and it requires FDA, or if it's a, airplane technology and requires, FA, whatever the regulatory body. I mean, great ideas, but then those regulatory bodies can just slow down the process into a decade or more. And we just can't do that for our VC investors. But I mean, they're usually good ideas. So we usually, at a seed stage, we stay away from regulatory stuff. I mean, if they're getting close to regulatory, then we can say, oh, that's good. We can take a closer look at it. But yeah, we just stay away from that, unfortunately. I mean, it's lots of great ideas out there, but we can't do it.
Colin? Thank you so much for this conversation. It was really an eye-opener. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, great. Well, happy to do it. Great to meet you.